theyeshiva.net.
So in Sivav, that's the end of page Yud Ches, Sivav, we learned how, when we speak about the descent of the infinite reality, the infinite oneness, it's not just an abstract idea, it's very experiential. Because when you speak about a descent, we think of a Yerid in terms of physicality. Somebody's climbing down a ladder, somebody's climbing down a building, somebody's climbing down a mountain. It's a physical Yerid. When you speak about a spiritual Yerid, it means it's a change of identity. When we speak, I go down, so I was on the top floor, and now I'm on the bottom floor. I was on floor number 68, and now I'm on floor number 1. I'm in the lobby. So you came down, so your view is different. When you speak about Yerid here, it means the Ein Sof is completely transformed. Experientially, it's transformed. So how deep is that transformation? So that's what he says. It's so deep that it can even assume the identity of something that is antithetical to its very message, its very truth, its very love. That's how deep the transformation can be. So it's not just a transformation from a place of oneness to a place of separateness within holiness, like Olam Habriya, Olam HaYitzira, Olam HaAsiya HaRuchni, still spiritual world. It's not even a descent into a place where it's transformed into a physical experience, a blade of grass, a nervous system, a heartbeat, a brain neuron, right? A cell, a rock, a mountain, a tree, an animal, a fish, a dog, a reptile, whatever it is. The transformation could be to the point where the very Ein Sof, the Yerida, the descent is such that its identity becomes, in the words of Paro, Liya Oiri, the river is mine. Vani asisini, and I made myself. I'm my creator, which is the theme of these parshas, Shmois, Va'ei, Rabbi, B'Shalach, what happens to Paro. The ego that becomes so crazy to the point that it self-destructs in a way that from a god, Paro becomes a real shmata. And you have sometimes a situation where this ignorance, person doesn't know. So they may be using you to fight you, but they don't know anything better. They don't know better. Sometimes you have a situation where there's a lack of gratefulness, there's a lack of gratitude, what we call kfui tova, when the very blessing that was given to you, and you appreciate that blessing, that very blessing you use, you exploit it, you manipulate it, you use it to the very opposite end of what that whole blessing was given to you for. And you do it with that blessing, you do it with that kayach. If the Nilus wouldn't be rising, if the Nile wouldn't rise to Paro, he would never have the guts, the chutzpah to say, Liya Oiri Vani Asisini. It was the blessing of Yaakov that emboldened him and gave him physically the capacity to even be credible. So the whole Merida, the whole Milchama came from the very divine energy that was invested and trusted. And yet the Nilus did not stop rising, because Ein Sof comes Lamata Adein Tachlos. And that's Pshat, that the Oir is not just Behispashtus, it's also Begilui. We said earlier, there's Hispashtus. You say something is present everywhere, it extends everywhere because it's infinite. Gilui means that it's actually, in a way, that is absorbed in the vessels of the ones who receive it. When you say something is Gilui, it means that you're a keli for it. So it's tailor-made, because the Ein Sof actually goes down in a way that it becomes suitable to the identity of that which it's fueling. Paro wakes up in the morning and says, of course, Liya Oiri Vani Asisini. That's how deep the Ein Sof is manifested. So it's revealed, it's coming out through his personality. What is it? Be'etzem, it's Ein Sof. But the way it comes out is the exact opposite. What this teaches us, and this was the main point of the class yesterday, is, on one hand, how far one can be disconnected, and yet, even in the depth of disconnection, there's always connection. On one hand, it teaches us how much disassociation there can be, right? Lamata adein tachlis, to no end. That's how much disconnect there could be. And on the other hand, it means that there is still, in some mysterious and deep way, there is still a relationship. It also teaches us that which is perceived as what we call it klippus and sitra achera, you may want to call it evil, negativity, and all that. What's really, 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 really happening is it's all Ein Sof that became warped and distorted in the psyche and in the reality of the one receiving it, which required a lot of tzimtzumim, a lot of concealments, a lot of blockages. But the point is that it's always that element, which means the real avodah in the ultimate sense is not to break it, but to reveal it, to open up the lid, to really be able to unburden it from the terrible, terrible distortion that it's carrying in its own warped mind, to protect itself in its own weird way. It's protecting itself and protecting its core and protecting its Ein Sof, even though its expression is quite dysfunctional and not helping the person at all.
Rabbi, yesterday you mentioned there were 3 levels of klipa, and if it's out in Kachon, why is it limited to 3 that way?
It says in Kabbalah that klippas are divided into 2 categories. One is called klippas noiga, and one is called shalosh klippas atmeis. Klippas noiga, the word noiga means shining, light. It's from Yecheskel, from the vision of Yecheskel. Noiga loy savev. Noiga means a shine, there's a radiance. Klippas noiga means it's a shell, but it's translucent. It's translucent, like a grape. A grape also has a shell, it has a husk, but you could see the grape. Then you have klippas like a walnut. A walnut, you can't see the nut. You have to crack the shell to access the nut. In klippas noiga, you don't have to crack the shell. On the contrary, the shell can be part of it. You eat the grape even with the shell. In the walnut, it's actually a very thick klipa, and you don't see it inside. That's a more dense klipa. The same is true. There's different types of shells and husks that actually give you access, right? And then there's shells that they don't give you access. You have to really crack them. So in Kabbalah, it's called shalosh klippas atmeis. Why shalosh? The answer is it parallels the 3 levels of eish, ruach, mayim. Eish, ruach, mayim, the fire, the air, and the water, those are the shalosh. And in Yecheskel, he calls it ruach sa'ara, anan gadol v'eish mislakachas. In his vision, ruach sa'ara is a stormy wind, anan gadol is a big dark cloud, and eish mislakachas is a very intense fire. So those are called shalosh. Now, everybody knows what's the point of a klippa. It's a very interesting expression, klippas. The point of a klippa is always to protect the fruit. If a banana would grow without a banana shell, without a banana peel, if an orange would grow without an orange peel, right? If watermelon would grow without it, what would happen? Well, you can even open up a banana peel in your kitchen and leave it there for a day or 2, and you'll see what happens to the banana. And that's even after it's ripe, and it's in your kitchen, and it's in your refrigerator, whatever. There would be no way that the fruit would be able to develop well and to be able to survive the elements. It's a protector mechanism, exactly. Either the scorching heat in the summer or the rain and the moist and the cold in the winter would completely destroy the fruit. You would want to eat something, you wouldn't have anything to eat. So the klippa is doing the best service for the fruit. In the simple words, it's protecting it. That tells you exactly what klippa is supposed to be, exactly what it is. It's a protector. It's supposed to protect when something is dangerous and something is going to destroy you. You need a protector, right? So in fruits, they're not so sophisticated like people's klippas. But in the world of people's emotions, what happens? What's the tragedy? The tragedy is when the klippa, instead of becoming a protector and an accessory and a servant, so to speak, a shamash, a gabbai to the fruit, the gabbai, verte rebbe. You know when that happens? It ever happens? You understand? The klipa becomes a substitute. He said, he doesn't even tell you there's a fruit here. There's nothing. I'm the guy. Take pictures of me. I'm the guy. Right? Back to my metaphor yesterday. You have a suit. The function of a suit is to protect you. Right? You don't want to go outside without clothes. Yeah. Either because your wife will divorce you or because it's cold for whatever reason. So you put on clothes. What happened suddenly? The suit, that's me. Now I have to fit into the suit. I have a deranged suit, and now I have to become deranged. So the klippa becomes my identity. That's who I am. I don't even know anything else. Why did that happen? Somehow myself had to go into exile. It had to go into gold. So if the self was present, if the fruit was manifest, on a tree we don't make the mistake because it's very obvious that behind the peel there's a banana. Right? Everybody understands that. Even the monkeys understand that. The monkeys have a tremendous mechanism. I don't know if you know how to crack fruits open. You know, coconuts. They're amazing. You ever see the documentaries? And they teach it to their children, right? How do you take a coconut? How do you take walnuts? And how they crack it open? You know, they make tools. It's very interesting. So even monkeys understand that the juice is inside. Don't be fooled by the peel. But when it comes to the world of emotions, it's much more complicated. When it comes to the world of spirituality and psychology and the brain science, it's much more complicated. What happens often is, I don't even know about what's inside. In fact, what's inside is now completely concealed and distorted with either tzimtzumim, helemus, or hestadim, all three things. Tzimtzumim means it's a very small filter, very, very powerful filter that filters the light. Helemus means it's concealed. And hestadim means there's blockages that will actively not allow it to come out. This is where the klippa becomes a shomer. Not a shomer in a good way. I'm protecting you so that you're safe. I'm protecting that nobody knows that you're here. It's like Iran with the nuclear weapons, you understand? They don't have guards. What happened was they realized that they didn't put it in a place where you would expect it to be. They put their nuclear research missile heads and others in a commercial neighborhood with his other stores, and they made it look like a regular store without any special security, just to deceive that there's nothing there. It's a different type of shmirah. I'm guarding it that nobody should know that it exists. Even you shouldn't know that you have a self. You don't know. So now the shomer takes over the whole thing. That's a whole different type of klippa. And the chiddush is that it's all from Ein Sof. Because there's no other reality. If Ein Sof means kipshuta, everything, infinite, infinity means everything. So even the blockage is a form of Ein Sof. So really, at the end, you don't need a break. You need tikkun. You need to open up. You need to really reveal. You don't have to be afraid, even of para. The para inside of you. It says in Zohar that the beginning of Parashas Boy, Hashem told Moshe, Boy el para, come to para. So the Zohar says in Hebrew the lashon should be lech el para. Right? If I send you to go to somebody, I don't say come to Pari. I say go to Pari, Leichel Pari, not Boyel Pari. Boy is if I'm going. Come with me. Come, I'm going to visit Yankel, come with me. If I'm sending you to somebody, I say Lech Lecha, go. So it says in Zohar, amazing thing, that Moshe was afraid. He was afraid because this was the first time he had to go into Pari's innermost chamber. All the other times he met Pari outdoors. In the beginning, he met him at the Nile because Pari would go to the river to do his what he had to do, like we spoke about yesterday. Or he met him in the lobby, in the foyers, in the welcoming rooms where the king meets guests. But this time, Hashem said, "I want you to go in cheder lefnim cheder." You're going into his most intimate sanctuary. So Moshe said, "I can't." He was afraid. So Hashem said, "Boy, come, I'll go with you." Don't go yourself, but come with me. So what was this fear? It's an incredible idea. Moshe wasn't afraid of Paro. he turned this whole river. What do you mean he was afraid? Why was he so afraid? Moshe didn't have a problem with Amunah. Like Hashem is sending him. Moshe already did all the makkahs till then. It was Dam, Tzvadeya, Kinim, Arav, Dever, Shchin, Bara. There were 3 left. It's the beginning of Parshas Boy, the last 3. So it's not like Moshe thought, maybe Pare is going to win this war. The idea here is that there's something that is very, very scary. That is the power of Pare. The power is, and this is so true about life, that sometimes our greatest inhibitions come from the fact because we're afraid even to look at it. This part I'm not going to look at. This is so shameful. This is so embarrassing. This is so humiliating. I'm not even going to look at it. I'm not going there. This we have to leave. Sometimes I'm ready to go to a lot of places, but there's going to be a point. Ad kan hakofa zayin. That's it. I already went 7 hakofas. I'm not going for it. There's something, and that's where you have to go. That's exactly what has to be unburdened. That's the most powerful force that's holding a person in his grip. It's when that's cracked open, there can be a release. The neshama could come out of galus. Literally, that's the last chamber. So Hashem tells Moshe, boy, I'm coming, don't worry. In other words, what does it mean I'm coming? Hashem is everywhere. It means I'm there too. When Hashem says I'm coming, it means I'm there too. What's pshat I'm there too? It's really me. What you're scared of is you're really scared of yourself. It's really me. It's much easier said than done. Anyone who has experience with this knows it's much easier said than done. Because fear is not as rational as it is in the shiurim. In other words, fear doesn't come to the shiur. You understand? It really does. But it doesn't tell you it does. It's hiding somewhere. Yeah, it's like the internet. It's like the internet. It goes down, it goes up. It doesn't tell you I'm part of it. It's demoralizing, it's paralyzing. It doesn't tell its secret, that's its power. Pare is telling you the river is mine, I made myself. And Hashem is telling Moshe, boy, I'm there, come, you're not alone. I'm there too. Ani ichbadati asliboy. He says, boy, Pare, ki ani ichbadati asliboy. What's the key? Even his meshugana heart, his crazy, crazy thick heart, it's Oirein Sof Lamata Adin Tachlis. In other words, Oirein Sof doesn't have to be, if you're connected to that, you don't have to be afraid of anything. If you can internalize this, you don't have to come to another shiur. We still want you to come, but you don't have to.
If you internalize that, you can become yourself an outcast.
A what?
You can become yourself an outcast because people will, put you in a suit.
You have to hang around people who don't put you in suits.
What happened?
What happened to what? To Moshe? He went? What happened with Moshe and Parah? Right, that's the idea. But Moshe didn't have to be afraid. And ultimately the Jews went free. You're right.
It was something personal.
You're right.
We grew up together as brothers. What went wrong?
What went wrong? What went wrong is Pari didn't come to the shiur. He didn't want to show up. You have to show up. You have to show up. You have to show up for healing. You have to at least show up.
Did you have a choice?
Listen, I said yesterday from the Moirei Nayim that the tragedy of Pari is Pari represents the point where I have no choices. It's not so much here the physical Pari. Pari represents the concept of a person who has no choices.
How can he be helped if he doesn't choose to be helped? Choice.
if I could become aware of the fact that I'm in a place where I'm not making choices, that's all I can do. To be able to be aware that I'm in a place where I can't make choices, where my reactions are survival mechanisms and protective mechanisms, and that's the best I'm doing with my life, and I'm always in that place. That awareness is coming from a place that sees that. That place is not defined by it. The fact that I could see that already means there's an eye that's observing the brokenness. So that's already the beginning of freedom, even though I'm not free. The Baal Shem Tov once said that Soid Hagolus v'Hageula is in Das. The difference of exile and redemption is always perception. It's always Das. Now that's the core of everything. It sounds like a simple thing. Oh, it's a mindset. It's all it's really perception.
When we talk about the orientation coming from Mount, what exactly do we think for?
I think what it means is, so we tried to define it in class 1, in class 2, and in the next classes, and also yesterday, but I think the main point is, I don't know if you heard the first ones, but we discussed it all. I think that's the main, the key nakuda, the key point is that, in simple English, that really, really, we don't have any scary, completely evil, bad parts. And that's a pretty big revolutionary idea, because we always know there's good and there's evil, and there's good and bad, and part of you is bad, and in your case, it's 90% that's bad. I don't mean you, whoever the, poster boy for us is, right? In some cases, you believe it's 99.999% bad. You have an emunah that maybe there's something good. And there's a reason for it, because people have bad parts. I mean, right? It's not delusional. We call it Yetzer Tov, Yetzer Hara. Some people really want to do nasty things, and some people do very nasty things. I don't have to elaborate. Nasty on one level, nasty on another level, nasty on a global level, or nasty on a more individual level. Nasty in the sense of cruel, sadistic, barbaric, or even nasty in the sense of selfish, immoral, promiscuous, stupid, destructive, etc. So we call it Yetzer Tov, Yetzer Hara, right? However, what we're learning here is that there's a whole deeper dimension. The deeper dimension is that those parts that you really perceive as bad and evil, and nobody is denying that there are inclinations and addictions and cravings and instincts that are dysfunctional and destructive and don't help you and help your family. Nobody's saying that if I want to eat something that's poisonous for me, right, suddenly it's beautiful and it's Ein Sof. No, if you eat it, there's going to be consequences. You understand? And if you steal and you rob and you embezzle, there's going to be consequences. We're not, right? Every time I want to lie, I want to ganva, I want to gazel, it's not romanticizing that. What it is doing is, it's saying if you could really, really see within those parts, really, really within, you will really, really see that it's a distortion. Its message is really trying in some funny, weird way to connect you and be connected to your own source. In its own way, there's something very good and holy and sacred and positive about it, even though its form is so not that. And that means that there's no part of me that I have to be scared of. It means there's no part of me that I have to run away from. It means there's no part of me that can't be fixed and can't be repaired. What I need to do is, I need to be able to ask myself, what is it afraid of? What is it covering up for? What would it think would happen to it if it doesn't play this role in my life? What's going to happen to it? What would happen to you if you won't say Li Oiriv Ani Assassini? What would life look like? Something very scary. What is it? And it's amazing work. It's amazing work because it's the tikkun of everything. And I told you, in psychology, there have been two streams, generally. In Chassidus, it's already called a skafia and a sapcha. Skafia means you come to peace with the fact that part of you is broken, but you don't let it dictate your life, which is an amazing thing. I come into a chas and I have crazy social anxiety, right? People are coming to a bar mitzvah, you come into a Shabbat brachas, you come into an event, you have crazy social anxiety. Some people, meeting people is like a breath of fresh air. They love people. And some people going to a simcha is Gehenna. And every person who sees them, it's a new Gehenna. Anybody relates to this? If you don't, good. If you do, you do. You don't have to raise your hand. I'm just giving an example of something that's it's very hard. Right? So one way is what they do, what they call exposure therapy. You expose yourself to it, and you see that you could survive. Right? One way is of being aware of it and giving it its space, and then choosing what you want to do, which are all very powerful methods that can help people, whether it's social anxiety, whether it's OCD, if it's used in addiction, and a lot of different things, right? Anger, jealousy, hatred, etc. And these are all methods that are important. What we're learning here is a whole different nakuda, a deeper nakuda, not a contradiction, but a deeper nakuda. And that is that really there's no bad parts. There's literally no bad parts. Elamai, it's oirein soif lamata adin tachlis. And lamata doesn't mean lamata oilam ha'atzilus or oilam ha'briya. That's also lamata. Lamata means para, klippa. Klippa means that the Ein Sof assumes an opposite identity. So it means that my infinite light, what does it mean my infinite light? My infinite light is my light that's one with Hashem, that's one with everything, right? Descended. What does it mean descended? Doesn't mean go down a ladder. Descended means it transformed. Descent here doesn't mean like this. Descent means it transformed into an experience that says that I'm exactly the opposite of Ein Sof. In Pare's case, I'm a crazy, arrogant narcissist. So what does that mean about narcissism? Think about it. The most opposite union of Elikus is narcissism. All Elikus is bittul. What does narcissism mean? They say if you want to drown a narcissist, you put mirrors on the bottom of the ocean. Okay, you didn't get that? So Pare is the ultimate narcissist, right? I own everything, I am everything, everybody works for me. Yeah. I once heard from Rabbi Sachs, Olav Shalom, that the symbol of Mitzrayim is the pyramids. Right? He says the symbol of the Jewish people, or at least one of the symbols, is the menorah. He said, what's the difference? The difference is in the pyramids, the masses are on the bottom, and then you have the next level, and the next level, and the next level, and that's that. Everybody's holding up one person on the top. Para. Everybody is here to support me. You go under you, and I step on you, and I'm on the top. I'm para. And the question is which level? Are you mamash, you're from the shmatas on the bottom, or you're from the choshev people, so you're somewhere in the middle of the pyramids? But it always points to the guy on the top. He says the menorah was the exact opposite. Ad Yerecha, Ad Pircha, you had the single base of the menorah, right? That's the leader, and he supported all the 7 branches, which represents all the 7 parts of the Jewish people, corresponding to the 7 midas, like it says in Likud Torah, right? The 7 midas, and he supports them. The Gemara says in Hardiyus that Rabbi Gamliel said there were 2 people he wanted to make leaders, and they didn't want because of their humility. And he said, You think I'm turning you into leaders? I'm turning you into avodim. He wanted to make them the Nesiim. So they didn't want. He said, you got the wrong impression. I'm not giving you power. I'm giving you avdus. Now, it's an amazing description because he was giving them power. But what's power in Judaism? Real power in Judaism is that you're serving more, you're not serving less. You have much more. You understand? That is what power is. It's not exploitive power. I have power, so now I can abuse you and use you. It's basically I'm plugging into God's power. So l'chayda narcissism is the exact opposite, and that's part of it. So the chiddush here is saying, now you have to be careful with trying this at home because this is sensitive stuff. No, it's extremely sensitive. That if the narcissist can, and it's not easy, narcissism is one of the hardest situations in the world. Narcissistic personality disorder, if you know about it, you know how serious it is. And the people around that person suffer terribly. But is there a tikkun for somebody with that? Or similar things, right? All these types of things. So it takes a lot of openness. But the real truth is, the real truth is that somehow this guy with narcissistic personality disorder, acknowledging how painful it is, especially to everybody around, but the ultimate tikkun is when he realizes that all of his narcissistic emotions and experiences and warped way of seeing the world, and it's a really warped way of seeing the world, trust me. I know a little bit about it. It's a really warped way of seeing the world. If you're not a narcissist, you don't know what it is. Unless you unfortunately have a relationship with somebody. You can have a relationship, but you were forced to be in some connection with somebody. It's a Gehenna every second because there's no empathy. There's literally nobody else. It's not even I'm trying. It's not like I'm selfish. There's nobody else. Your whole metzias is a din inside of me. It's literally a mirror. Imagine I'm looking at everybody and everyone is a mirror. And your personality is also a mirror. It's not just you're a mirror. A mirror is a dead thing. Your creativity is also a mirror. You understand how it is? Your children, your wife, your husband, the whole world. The whole world is really, really a mirror. How much pain did this person have? I don't know when and how, but probably as a child. That in order to be able to protect their poor self, this is the klipa that was created as a substitute for self. Now this shell is as thick as the China wall, right? It's thicker than the walls that Herod built in Eretz Yisrael. It's a thick wall. But the reason it's so thick is because it's protecting something so vulnerable and precious. So in some crazy way, and you have to say this with a lot of sensitivity, there's really a very, very precious spark over there that you have to empathize with that created such a type of crazy cover-up, crazy klipa in order to protect its own infinite self. And the moment you realize it and you say, you know what? You don't have to. You're not 4 years old anymore. You can unburden yourself from the need of being narcissistic. There's going to be a flash flood of tears and a new person will be born. Now, I wish it was as easy as the last 5 minutes in reality, because remember, the narcissist is going to go on Mesiras Nefesh because they ain't safe, and it's all because they ain't safe, because he's protecting something that's really infinite, so the narcissism becomes infinite. The narcissism is a distortion. It's a levush. That's megala ein sof. It's megala it in the opposite of ein sof. Now, these are not words that should be said easily because you have to acknowledge. That's why this Maamar struggles level after level after level, because you have to acknowledge how disconnected from ein sof it is. Pare was a Rasha Merusha. Pare wasn't a tzaddik, he was a Rasha Merusha. You have to acknowledge how disconnected it is. That's why he goes through Briya, Yitzir, Asiya, Gashmias, Klippa. You have to acknowledge that, because if not, you're in La La Land and you understand what I'm saying? You have to acknowledge the pain of it.
He has to not acknowledge himself.
Of course, if he thinks narcissism is the way, but trust me, the narcissist suffers more. Again, I'm saying this with sensitivity. The narcissist is suffering as much as everybody else. He just created a worldview that he's not. That's how much he's suffering. He's a miserable, pitiful human being. Miserable. He's a wretched. Of course they don't. If the moment he wouldn't be able to justify it. It's all pain. It's all pain. Pain. The guy never experienced love in his life. He never experienced a moment of safety. It's very common today, by the way. It's not always narcissism. It's other things. Bessel van der Kolk told me that they're learning more and more that mental illness is also associated with trauma. Now, how much of that is accurate, I don't know. I'm not an expert. But the point is, that means that sometimes the most crazy experiences you see in people are rooted in pain. It's not just a chemical imbalance they were born with, which makes sense. It says in Chassidus that every illness is rooted in an inyan ruchni. The guf and the neshama are very connected. The guf is the neshama. The neshama, like we learned about Ur and Keli. So physical ailment is always connected to something spiritual. It doesn't mean there's no physical ailment, right? It's like the Indian doctor. So an Indian doctor, he once met a boy. He says, "Oh, wow, I didn't see you in many years. How's your father? How's your uncle?" Because they knew each other. They were neighbors. He says, "Oh, my uncle is very sick." So he was an Indian doctor. He says, "It's not true." He says, "He's sick." He says, "Tell your uncle he thinks he's sick. He thinks he's sick. It's in his mind." A few weeks later, he met him again. He says, "How is your uncle?" He says, "My uncle thinks he died." You have to be careful, sometimes everything is spiritual, It's important to understand that Ruchnis and Gashmis work together. But my point is that that's a fascinating thing, that if this person never experienced a moment of safety in their life, and the world is a non-safe place, and by the time I was 4 years old, my heart was broken into 5 million little pieces, right? My klipa that may develop is going to say, you know what? There's not going to be anything else in this world that's not about me. I have no choice. Everybody and everything in this world is going to be about me. The river is mine. I made myself. I made you. You are here for me. Can you see the pain of somebody who has to do that? There was not one person I could trust. Not one person who thought about me. So what happens? I'm the one who has to think about me to the exclusion of anybody else. I don't even have the mental space to think about you. The last time I thought about another person, I got a stab in my heart. How much love was destroyed in order to create that sensation? Can you see, can you empathize, not with the narcissism, but with the pain that caused it? I wanted to be one. I can't be. So maybe my clip has told itself, you go into hiding, you're too dangerous. We'll protect you. All these types of things. You're too embarrassing. We'll handle life instead of you. And now suddenly, a part of you that was supposed to protect you, right? People live in anger. What are they living in? A person is constantly angry, right? People always get angry. They're angry at their spouse. They're angry at their kids. They're just angry. What would it look like if I wouldn't be angry? You have to ask it. What would life look like if I wouldn't be angry? What is it? Something is happening here. You'll always find out. Now we need support of people. I can't do this myself. I'm too biased. I'm too part of the understand. But you'll always find out that if I wouldn't be angry, somehow I feel that I will not be able to live. I am protecting something very precious. I'm protecting a child who will not be able to live. Something will happen very, very dangerous to him. And that's how now I'm 50 years old, I'm 40 years old, I'm 30 years old, I'm 60 years old, and I'm still angry at the world. And I don't even know why anymore. Your wife asks you to take out the garbage, you're angry. Pick up challah for Shabbos, you're angry. Buy milk for Shabbos, for Sunday morning, you're angry. Your kid needs extra money to go buy something, you're angry. So you say, yeah, because I don't have money. That's not the reason. Yesterday you went to a restaurant and you wasted much more money and you weren't angry. What are you angry about? So sometimes you have to say, you know what, you're angry, but do the right thing. Okay, eskafia. Here we're saying something much more than that. And that is your poor anger, Nebuch. Poor Eirein Seif. It had to be transformed into anger. You understand? Could you unburden it? Can we see what's there? And suddenly you'll see probably there's this sweet little, beautiful, loving child who was maybe hopeless and helpless. And your only defense tool was anger. That's it. That's the only way you could feel like a mensch. I couldn't do anything. I was 5 years old. All I could do is feel hurt and angry. Now it's 45 years later, right? Your wife asked you to do something. Somebody else asked you to do something. And that was triggered again. It was never worked out. I'm just giving different types of examples, but it's true about every nikud in the world. That was triggered again. So it's my helplessness. As though I'm under attack again. I'm being attacked. So what's my only defense mechanism? I'm angry. You're a sick person. You're a rush. Okay, you're sick, Baruch Hashem. It's some little menuchas hanefesh. I'm a tzaddik. You're a meshugana. You're a rasha. The olam is taifus. What I'm saying. I'm just giving different possible illustrations. There's endless more, and on different levels. But possible illustrations where something so beautiful and precious and holy assumes such dysfunctional emotions and experiences, and it's really only because of blockages of what's really going on. Imagine if instead of getting angry, right, I could look at myself and you and say, wow, I could really feel the inner pain behind the anger. I could really feel my loneliness, for example, or my helplessness. I could really feel, and then I could ask myself, what do I really, really want? And then I'd say, I want to be one with you. I want to be connected. In other words, you want to be part of connection. You want to be part of Ein Sof. We're all connected. That's what you're looking for. And I could talk about that, and then you could respond and say, I'm here for you. I love you. I cherish you. And then you could talk to the anger and say, do you give permission to go away for 5 minutes and find out what happened if you wouldn't get angry? What's going to happen here? And let it open up the wound, right? And you see that there was so many cover-ups just to protect something that was so painful and really very precious and beautiful. So my anger wasn't evil. My anger was the only thing I knew how to do in a very, very difficult situation. Misconception, but the misconception now is in my nervous system. The misconception is in my nervous system. My nervous system doesn't feel safe. The definition of Eirein Sof is that you're safe. You're safe. You're in an embrace of oneness. You're safe. That's what safety means. Oneness equals safety. Safety equals oneness. What does safety mean? Safety means you can be loved, cherished. Right? When you're part of Ein Sof, it means that you're part of eternity, you're part of infinity. You're embraced by oneness, you're an extension of that light. You're in a very safe place because you're at the core of life. So there's safety. But I'm not. I feel disassociated. So it creates all these types of things. The chiddush here is that the Eirein Sof didn't leave by Lamata Den Tachlis. People think, I'm so broken, there's no chance anymore, there's no hope. That's what we're saying, that the soul is there too. No, I'm not saying that we're all narcissists because we don't trust anybody. I'm saying, I once asked a fellow, it was a particular shul that I knew somebody, and he was a very edel person, And then I saw that something changed in him. He was like very tough. So I said, what happened? So he said to me that he's dealing with real estate. He's dealing in real estate the last few years in Manhattan. So what he told me, he says, and everybody there is a shark. So to succeed, I also became a shark. And I don't know how to turn it off always. I became a shark. Okay. What I'm saying is as follows. Perhaps if when I was young, there was no caregiver, the caretakers, the most reliable people in my life, usually a mother, a father, or similar people of such influence in my life. There was nobody to create attachment where I felt safe, secure, seen, and soothed. And the attachment was either completely not there, or very wounded, or avoidant. There was emotional neglect. And never mind if there was not only neglect, but even, sometimes there's neglect, but even if there was the opposite. Our survival mechanisms that develop are diverse. Depends on so many circumstances. Depends on my genes and my disposition and my character and my soul and the nature of the experience. One of the possible, very dysfunctional dispositions that I develop is a philosophy and an experience of life where simply I don't even have the mental space to experience empathy for another person. I can't even see them. I can't feel them. I can't see them. I can't experience them. Now, I want to survive. And I know I'm smart. And I know that we live in a society where empathy and compassion is lauded. It's praised. So I become so skilled that I copy empathy. I know how to feign empathy. I know how to be nice. In Shul, they call me the Sar HaChesed. The Sar HaChesed. I know the right things to say to the right people to become the essence of kindness in the community. But really, it's all a shell. It's all dead. There's literally nothing there. Mamish nothing. Deep down, I have absolutely no real, genuine experience of the other. Now, what I really do, but it's completely, I have no access to it. A whole different klipa took over. That's one very possible response. And it's very, very deep because the person doesn't even know it anymore. They don't even know it. And anybody who gets close and expects it, you become the most angry at them. The guy in the shul who comes in Shabbos morning, right, at the Kiddush, you're going to give him your herring. It's great. You fit into the community. But when it comes to your wife and kids who live with you, right, and they're always looking for that, the person's anger and blaming them and always getting angry at them becomes very, very powerful. And he himself doesn't even know the gullus he's living in. That's what I'm saying. The fact that when we're older, we live in a world where often you can't trust many people. Okay, so it's good not to be naive. If you're going into business with somebody and he's going to baganva you and bagazzle you, it's good to have the boundaries that protect you. What's the question? That's a good thing. That's where klipa is good. We all need protections. It's called tznius. It's called proper walls. I'm not supposed to look into your bedroom and your kitchen and your dining room, right? The Gemara says, Bilam saw that the doors are not parallel to each other because everyone needs healthy boundaries. Those are good walls. Good fences, good neighbors make. Whether it's a cynical statement or a positive statement is already a debate for poets. What Mr. Frost meant. Whether it was cynical or positive, right? Your wife has a commentary on that. But good fences, good neighbors make. But the point is, that's a banana peel. You need a banana peel. Nothing wrong with a banana peel. It's raining outside, you put on a klipa. It's called a coat. It's called a coat. A Yid told me, his name is Label Posner. You see, such an edelkeit, Label Posner. It's a Yid, he lives in Borough Park today, I think, at Crown Heights. So he told me that he was All the Shabbos I was walking and I met him, so I asked him to tell me something. He told me a story. It was the early 1940s, and he was learning in the Lubavitch Yeshiva in 770. And in the middle of the early 40s, 42, 43, 44, there was a truck that came to deliver new svarim, new books. The Lubavitcher Rebbe, who was then known as the Ramash, the son-in-law of the Rebbe Rayatz, whose yahrzeit is today, he saw that the svarim came and he wanted to bring them in. So he asked a few of the Bachrim if they could bring in the boxes from the Eastern Parkway into his room. So they said, of course. It was the middle of the break, I think. So a few Bachrim went and they were schlepping in the boxes. It was raining. So Label Posen was going out. So the Rebbe asked him if he had a coat, because he said he doesn't have a coat. So the Rebbe said, use my coat. And he showed him his coat was hanging over there in a room they call Gan Eden Atacht. So he borrowed the Lubavitcher Rebbe's coat. He was then the Ramash, and he brought in the boxes. And he said, when you finish, just put back the coat over there. So he says, when he came back with the boxes, the Rebbe looked at him, and he said, Doch amakif, aber man darf haben an eigene. A coat is makif, but you have to have your own makif. The Chassidus said that makif and pnimi. Pnimi is individualized. Makif, right, is an encompassing energy that's not different, like a talus. A jacket, it has to fit me. I can't put on your jacket. I can't put on your pants. It's not going to work. I can't put on your shoes. A makif, a talus, I can wear your talus. Right? We could be in the same room. It's a makif. A makif means it's a higher transcendent energy. So a coat is like a makif, because it's, even though if it's too small, you can't put it on, but relative to other things, levushim are called makifim, because they're above. So even though in levushim itself, it still has to be measured, but relative to the inside, a levush is called a makif. So he says, a makif, a bedach an eigene. In other words, even a makif, you have to have your own makif. Even a makif, even a coat. The point is, a banana peel is a good thing. You have to. You're going out in the rain. You need a coat. That's not a bad that you're protecting yourself. I'm talking about when protection becomes my mechanism of living. There's no relationship. There's only protection. What happens if the lack of trust is now with every one of my kids, right? With every one of my siblings, with every one of my parents, with every one of my friends, and worse, with your spouse? What does that look like? You can't be in a relationship. There's no empathy. If I'm not feeling you, if I can't let go, if I can't really listen to you, there's no relationship. It's a Gehenna. And if I deny it, then I blame you. The moment the narcissist knows he's a narcissist, it's already a Yeshua. It's already a Yeshua. It's not yet Mashiach, but it's a Yeshua. It's a Geit Afavek. But if I deny it, then you're the crazy one. Oh, it's a Gehenna. Somebody just published a book, a woman. I forgot the title. It was a very smart title, but the subtitle was Being Married to a Narcissist. Her first title, I forgot. Very, very creative title, like a relationship that's like, it's a delusional relationship, like a relationship with somebody who doesn't exist. Very cute, like, not so cute, I mean tragic. But the subtitle is Living with a Narcissist. I'm using this as an example for many, many other things. It could be mental illness, right? But it's also all types of emotions and experiences that we have. We have to have the courage to be able to go deeper. And when you have the courage to go deeper, you see two things. First of all, it's not a bad part in you. It's a protective part. It's a protective part. The manager, the protector, the shomer, the klipa, simply lost his shlichus. He doesn't know who he is anymore. He became something that he never wanted to become. Nebach. And therefore he'll be the happiest to unburden himself from his burden. And number two, you learn, and this is so important, that the Eirin Seif was always there. Your soul was always present. In other words, even in your disconnect from yourself, there was self. And therefore you were never really disconnected. B'steifus? Huh? Now he's Moisef here, that when it says Parai, he adds when Parai had the Nilus come up to him, and he used the Nilus as a way of fighting God and Moshe, the tragedy is even deeper because we understand what the Nilus was. The Nilus was the first river that came out of Eden. V'nor yoytze me Eden lahashkas hasagan. The first river is Pishai. So that's the first access, the first river that comes out and has access to Eden. Eden is considered Hashem's intimate pleasure. And the first expression of that was the Nilus. So to give Parai a blessing that the Nilus should come up to him was giving Parai access to deepest divine pleasure. And that's what Parai manipulated. That's why that's the real mashal for Ein Sof L'Matat Ein Tachlis. He took that pleasure and he used it to turn himself into a god. He took that powerful spiritual energy of Ein Sof and it completely was exploited. In fact, it's brought into this. Nilus is Begematria Yosef. Nilus is Begematria Yosef because Yosef went down to Egypt. And Yosef was the one to sublimate Egypt. That's why Yaakov came down to bless Parai. And that's why it says, he brings from the Mitzvah Rebbe, the Tzemach Tzedek, that when Yaakov passed away and they took him to Eretz Yisrael to bury, there was a big eulogy at a place called Goren HaAtad for 7 days, and everybody saw, and they said, Avel Kaved Lu Mitzrayim. It's a tremendous Avel for Mitzrayim in Parshas Vayechi. The question is, it wasn't an Egyptian grief, it was a Yaakov. It was Avel Kaved for Yaakov and his family, for the family of Yaakov, not Mitzrayim. So on a simple level, it means because the Egyptian dignitaries were there. So obviously it was a loss. But spiritually, it's also true. When Yaakov passed away, Mitzrayim could grieve. Because the one who suffers most from Klippa is Klippa. The one who suffers most from Yaakov's passing is Parai and Mitzrayim. Through Yaakov's blessing, Parai and Mitzrayim became, first of all, they were blessed physically, because they were blessed spiritually, because they were conduits for Kedusha. The Nilus coming up to Parai allowed that Parai should realize that he has the power to help the Jewish people. The moment Yaakov passed away and Parai started to manipulate the energy and use it for himself, it became Avelis for him. It was the beginning of their downfall. Physically, they were destroyed, and spiritually, instead of serving their purpose as a conduit for Kedusha, they detached themselves in the search for power and ultimately ended up destroying themselves. Like Hashem tells Avram, whoever blesses you will be blessed, whoever curses you will be cursed. They're cursing you to protect themselves, but they're really cursing themselves more than anybody else. Yeah, Melech Chodesh, he became a new king. The clipper goes out of whack. Out of whack. When Hashem says whoever curses you will be cursed, Hashem told it to Avram Avinu. It's not a prediction. It's not, by the way, it's not a blessing. It's a historical prediction. If you look out through history till today, and you want to look at any nation, you want to say, should I move there, should I not move there? Is it a good place to live or not a good place to live? Ask one question. When you should ask maybe a few questions, but one question is, how do they treat the Jewish people? Historically, countries that mistreated the Jewish people, ultimately, sooner or later, they mistreated their own people with equal barbarity and sadism. Stalin began with Jews, but how many Russians were murdered, not Jews? How many? 40 million people. Hitler started with Jews, but how many Germans suffered? Iran, Afghanistan, Gaza, Egypt, they hate Jews more than anybody else. But how do they treat their own minorities? People who disobey, women, people who have different priorities. How do they treat them? Hashem was telling Avram a fact. Whoever blesses you will be blessed. It's not just a prophecy, I'm going to give it. It's a fact of history. You look how a nation treats Jews, and you'll see how they treat women, how they treat children, how they treat their own minorities, how much sensitivity, how much dignity, how much freedom, how much normalcy is there. The moment Parai lost touch with that, he destroyed himself and he destroyed his people. Physically, economically, and spiritually, instead of being an assistance for Kedusha, became a contradiction. That was the tragedy. So when Yaakov died, it was an Avelis from Mitzrayim. And this is also a Nakuda. When you unburden those parts that seem so bad, you're doing them a favor. Deep down, my soul is crying that I have to be angry. My anger doesn't want to be angry. It's a part that wants to do something else. I want to be proactive. I want to be aggressive in a good way. Nebuch, I became an angry person, or a depressed person, right? Or a selfish person, or an addict. The addiction is crying. I never wanted this. This is what I had to become, and that's why there's no menuchas hanefesh. The moment you unburden Parai, right? He'll thank you. When Yaakov passed away, Mitzrayim was grieving. Okay, and I want to finish the last piece. We'll be mamash another few minutes. So turn, what I said now outside was Seif Vav, and I'll go to Seif Zayin, which is page Chaf. Page Chaf. So after he finished explaining Lamata Adein Tachlis with Parai and the Nilus, page Chaf, Seif Zayin, so he says, V'hinei, al pi ha'amur le'el shetoichin klolos hamshech ilul b'negei l'avodas ha'adam, hanei muvan shegam ha'medu b'reidas Parai shayach b'avodas ha'adam. Based on what we said, that the main discussion here is about avodah. We keep on saying this. The point here is not spiritual ideas about Oirein Soif, Atzilis, Biyah. The main Indian is how it applies to a person. So the whole explanation about Parai, don't think we're talking about Parai. We're talking about Parai, we're talking about every person. There's the Parai in every person. That's why he continues in the Maamar Basi Legani. Remember, this is the Maamar, all Basi Legani, that the Rebbe Rayatz gave out to learn Yud Shvat Tavshin Yud, which was the day that he himself passed away. Today, the Yartzeit is today, Yud Shvat. So the Rebbe is saying over this Maamar, focusing on Ois Yud Gimel, and explaining it line by line what he's saying. So he continues in the Maamar, the same phenomenon, obviously in a more subtle way, exists in every person in their life, both by Bali Asakim. Bali Asakim means people involved in business, and Yosh V'Yoyel means people who sit in the world of Torah. Generally, Klal Yisrael is divided into those that primarily they're in the world of business, whatever that looks like. And Yosh V'Yoyel are those who are involved more in the world of Ruchnius, of Torah, Tefillah, etc. So in both, you have this concept. The Babali Asakim, what does it look like in business? What does Parai, this look like in business? When a person starts believing that it's my own vigor, my own strength that made me so successful. We're not talking about Parai. We're talking about a Yid, a Jew. So he knows and he believes that Hashem gives him the power. And Hashem's blessing makes wealth. And not only that, he mentions Hashem's name in the business. He says, Emitz Hashem, Baruch Hashem, Bezras Hashem, I'll make $1 million. Altzi says, Baruch Hashem, he's Masker Shem Shemayim. So where is the Indian here? Mikol Makoy, Minei Choshev, the Koichev Ha'etzim Yadeh, Hanu de Chachmosei Amdallah. Nonetheless, that's true, he's Masker Shem Shemayim, he's a Jew, he believes in Hashem. But ultimately, he feels that at the end of the day, it's my chachma, it's my brilliance, my koyach that made me successful. So when he's on top of the world, b'chala and yanim, in all aspects, ya'oz b'havasai. Ya'oz b'havasai is an expression from Tehillim Nun Beis. He becomes chutzpahdik in his existence. There's something that happens when a person is successful that they're untouchable, like they become this core arrogance. Just my existence, somehow I'm superior to you. It's like a superiority complex. It's like almost I'm untouchable. It's a certain, he says, something psychologically happens to you. I don't know if there's anybody here very, very wealthy or successful, if you want to raise your hand. Gewaldig. So why did this not happen to you? You're very approachable. Somehow it's very mitzias. Ich bin besser. They call it Feinschmeckers in Yiddish. There's a certain distance. For Indian Bazek, we should mavai ad Maamar Rabbi Yosef Bam Shchmayim Rabbi Betchilas. The Rabbi Maamar is a Hamshich of Chizis Mayim. Rabbi Tafresh Lamdav explains the Hinik. It says Ubeirach Hashem Alakacha B'Chol Asher Tasa. Hashem will bless you in all that you do. Parshas Re'ei. Pirush Kishatisker Hashem Alakacha. Pirush Shuanos L'Chakayach Lasas Chayil V'Loi Tema Kaychi Veitzim Yodi Yasli Yasachayil Azah. Az Ubeirach B'Chol Asher Tasa. When you'll remember that it's Hashem Alakacha. What's Prat Hashem Alakacha? That Hashem is the one who's giving you the energy, the empowerment, rather than making it, saying it's my own, then, in other words, it has to be Havaya, should be Aleikecha. You should realize that not that you don't have strength, of course you have strength. Not that you're not working, of course you're working. Not that you're not using your brains or creativity. But your creativity, that is divine. Hashem Aleikecha. That's also an insight. Not that you're supposed to be lazy and sit on the couch and say, oh, I do nothing. I just buy lottery tickets. If you could win lottery tickets, gesundheit. But the Nikud is, that's how he teaches the pasuk. When Hashem becomes Elekecha, you remember that Hashem is Elekecha, it's your God. Right? It's your God. Then, the Inyan, Emre Bekal Pirusha, Kol Ma Sheyasi Alal Tevel Atzlach. When he says b'chayla shetasa, it means whatever you do could be successful. V'yechayla shetiya atzlachi, you say the gam basi is davar katan sheis asher b'yishadav. We see this. Sometimes a person is involved in big things. It doesn't yield what they wanted to. And sometimes another person, he touches up as something, and suddenly it turned into gold next week. Right? There was somebody who sold his shares in Microsoft. For how much? Not in Microsoft, in Apple. He sold it with three guys. There was Steve Jobs and his friend and a third guy, and he sold it for $800. He told them this is going to be futile, so he sold his shares for $800. $800 became billions. Not bad, right? I give you $800 and it turns tomorrow into $50 billion. Not so bad. The point is not that you shouldn't work. The point is you don't even know what. Whatever you can do could be a small thing that turns into gold. Why is that? So you say mazel, yeah? Guy once told me he was a ger. He was a convert, a very special person. He says, I have the worst of both worlds. He says, ich habe a goyische Kopf mit jiddische Mazel. That's what he tells me. It's again. That's the word. A person works, but you don't know. Amnam kasher evlas adam to salav darke, the pasuk says in Mishle. When the folly of a person makes his ways crooked, very interesting words he says. People start following all these types of schemes and plans because I want to be like somebody else. So you start pursuing things. It's not who you are. It's not what you need. Instead of living a life that's consistent with your essence, you're busy emulating other people. Financially, psychologically, emotionally, spiritually. I go into your house. I need your kitchen. I see your car. I don't need your kitchen. I don't need your car. I need to be me, but I don't know who I am. I don't believe in myself. I'm not attached. I'm not connected. I'm not centered. I'm not anchored. So my life now becomes, what do you look like? Oh, looks good. Okay. Suddenly now I have to turn over my whole life, make everybody meshuga so I could be like you. This is pshat, evlas adam tesalav darke, demach sich alein mishum. Instead of really embracing who you are, what you have, and enjoying it, I'm miserable because I'm busy, fascinatingly, I'm busy trying to be who you are. As they say, we're all born originals, but many of us die as copies. I'm become a copy. So I'm looking for things. He says it's not lefi erkoi ma'alosoi ma'amadoi matzove. Erkoi means it's not your level. Ma'alosoi, it's not your virtue. It's not your standing. It's not your situation. And the person thinks that I could manipulate and exploit everything because everything is up to me because of my kayach, my wisdom. So as I in addition to losing the union of being connected to Hashem Elokecha, which is a source of the blessing, furthermore, the person could even make it worse for themselves. And you could do damage of things, even dangerous things, hazardous things. What people do here in order to be able to reach certain things they have to reach, just to be yotzer, to emulate somebody, your life becomes a mess. This is interesting analysis here, and a Maamar usually doesn't get so sharp, but what people do for financial success in order to be able to fit into a certain bracket or demographic. Says you're completely not in touch with yourself. You don't know who you are. You don't know what your shlichus is. And that Maamar Rabbi brings examples. It all begins with the fact that you don't know who you are. Instead of a person realizing I'm a conduit for Hashem, it becomes koichi v'otzim yadi, I detach. So this is how he's explaining para in a person's avodah. The very success I have, like para, the very success I have, instead of using that success and acknowledging it, and it intensifying my relationship with God and with others, what happens is I detach it from the source. And that itself is being fueled by my success. If I wouldn't be successful, I wouldn't be able to develop this philosophy. I wouldn't be able to be such a chutzpinyak. I wouldn't be able to become so arrogant. But because God gave me the nilus, denial, I could say it's mine. But He still gives it to me. Because Eirein Sof is Lamat Hadi Tachlis. So the very Eirein Sof, right? That's the hashpah that's coming in. And what is it used? It's used for the person saying, oh, it's mine. They say there was a guy looking for a parking place. He had a very urgent appointment. It was in Manhattan. Go find parking in Manhattan, yeah? Even if you own the Nile River, the Nile Delta, you can't find parking in Manhattan. So he makes a deal with God, and he says, God, I'm going to be making a lot of money. 50% goes to tzedakah if you give me a parking place. A second later, a car goes out. He says, never mind, I found one on my own. Never mind, I found one on my own. My mother told me, she once went for the summer to Eretz Yisrael with my family, including myself. I was a baby, a very little baby. So before she went into the Lubavitcher Rebbe before the summer, and she told the Rebbe the plans. She told, my father told. So the Rebbe listened, he gave a blessing, he spoke to them, whatever. Before they left, he looks at my mother and he says, the Eibishter soll mazmin sein adire gringeheit. You're going to have to rent a house there. So Hashem should help. You should be able to find a house easily. It should be easy to find a house. Okay. So they go to Israel and they land. They buy the baggage claim. So my mother is standing near a fellow waiting for a suitcase. Hi, how are you? Welcome. Where are you staying in Israel? My mother says, I don't know. We have to find a place. She says, oh, I have a house to rent. And by the way, this is the early 70s. It has an air conditioner and it has a washing machine. In 1972, to get a washing machine and a telephone and an AC in Israel, was even today, some places, it's hard to find. But there was like a chiddush nifla. But he wanted high rent, whatever it was. So my mother's thinking to herself, it's so easy. Wow, by the baggage claim, somebody's offering you a house. This must be very easy. So she said, no, I want to do a little more research. She told me it was a miserable summer. They couldn't find a place. They found a place. It was bahakt. There was nothing there, whatever. And then she realized that Rebbe gave her a bracha right before she left. That was the baggage claim. That was the first, you come to Israel, it was there. She didn't realize, understand? It's a lesson in life, right? I have already my own parking place. This is the temptation. The temptation is to detach. When you have a special moment of joy, don't detach, attach. Bring it back to the source. Don't say, oh, I can do it on my own. You got a blessing. Bring it back to the relationship. Don't detach from the relationship. Remember the difference of Parei and Moshe. Moshe was helped by the Nilus. What did he do? He never struck the water again. Parei was helped by the Nilus. What did he do? Every morning he did what he did. Don't abuse me and don't use me. Connect to me. That's the difference. And then he says, one more nakuta. This is when it comes to business. What about a Yoshev Ayala ben Teire? Here everything is gewaldig. Lenin's Teire, you're Steiger. Mamshech ba'amaymer. There's spiritual narcissism even in Teire. Now it's going to be a sharp shtickle. This is also true in learning. Even though he's learning. And just like the businessman, he knows that it's Hashem's Torah. He made a bracha before. He made a brechas HaTorah. Baruch atah Hashem shebacha banu mikolam and v'nasa lanu was Torah. Every morning we make a brechas HaTorah. That means it's God's Torah. Because that a efsher chalila shebekayich HaTorah oy medvar halacha shehepech HaTorah. It's possible sometimes people use Torah, and with the kayach of Torah, he says something, a halacha that's opposite of Torah. If he would be an amaret, he wouldn't be able to do that. But because God gave him a bracha, the nilus, so he uses Torah, b'kayach ha-Torah. He uses the Torah against itself. That's a mashal for Erein Soif, lamata adin tachlas. For who kedugmas balei asakim, it's like in the world of business. The businessman also believes that there's a God. He says Baruch Hashem 10 times a day. But it's simple faith in the sense that it's a munah, it's a belief. But you don't go to the bank with it. But the foundation of the business is not built on that relationship. Ultimately, I'm not anchored in it. And therefore, the result can be that the person becomes crazy in business and they're doing things that are mamish irrelevant to them, not consistent with who they are, not normal, because they lose it. They lose sight of who they are and who's blessing them. That's what happens. People, they I become a shark. Or I become you lose it. You become a workaholic. You're 18 hours. People, they lose their marriages. They lose their kids. They lose sight. Why? Because you have a house. I also have to have this house. Bigger, right. But whatever it is in the person's life. Lav dafka a house. It could be other things. The same happens in learning. He learns Torah. He knows it's Hashem's Torah. The foundation of the learning is missing something. What is it? The he has a munah that is Hashem's Torah. But now when he's learning, he becomes consumed in the intellectual creativity. And he loses touch with the fact that Torah is a lakus. It's Ein Sof. It's Edelkeit. It's godliness. So I could use my very mind and manipulate Torah and say that that's Torah. Why? Because I'm not in touch with the core of it. In the beginning, when he starts learning, he has a munah that Hashem gave the Torah and it's Hashem's Torah. But Hashem wants you should understand. He doesn't just want you should read, you should understand. And And then seichel takes over. All there's left is my intellect, my brilliance, my ego. And with my intellect, people can use their minds in many different directions. I use the Torah itself to give a direction which is antithetical to the desire of the one who gave the Torah. So it starts off, it's Hashem's Torah. But suddenly my seichel now gets involved, and now it's all about me. I'm going to prove you wrong. I'm right. I'm a gadol. I'm a genius. I'm brilliant. And you completely lose touch with the whole essence of Torah, which is really a channel for Ein Sof, a channel for oneness, for godliness, for more humility. Your seichel is here to be able to be a conduit for transcendence. It's a whole different experience in Torah. I was once, I was a bachas, I went to a certain yeshiva, I wanted to go to the mikveh in the morning over there. They had a shul at a mikveh, so I went there. So it was a person learning with children, a Gemara with Rashi. He came from certain circles, I want to say where, because from other places you wouldn't say this. So he reads to them the Rashi. He didn't understand the Rashi. And he says, Rashi lied! Rashi lied. So I told somebody else, this is where you see how somebody's off. Say, I don't understand Rashi. First of all, Rashi's brain is a little better than your brain. I don't understand. What happens? What happens is, it's like the Torah belongs to me. I don't understand Rashi. Rashi lied. So this is where the seichel takes over. It's not pure anymore. And now a person can already use the Torah itself against Torah. People use their mind, even not consciously, but it becomes convoluted. And you use the Torah itself becomes a tool for that which is opposite Torah. And it's holy because it's camouflaged in Torah. That's all an example of Ein Sof Lamata Adein Tachlis. If I wouldn't have Torah, I wouldn't be able to do this. I wouldn't be able to be so warped. You understand? If I wouldn't have smicha, if I wouldn't have Torah, I wouldn't be able to do this. I wouldn't be able to create such a disaster. But because I have the koyach HaTorah, so it gives me this type of authority and arrogance and kavod and wisdom and information, and I could play games. It becomes very dangerous. That's like Paray in a different world. So what happens in business is an example in Torah. And he says, what's pshat? The Gemara says that Torah Shabbal Peh is compared to a fig. Gemara in Eruvin. U'te'ena hi eitz hadas. Kedas Rashbi beGemara v'Medrash Rabbah v'Rab beGemara. In Gemara Brachas and in Medrash Rabbah, Bereish, question, what was the eitz hadas? So one opinion is it was a fig, it was a te'ena. That's what Rashbi holds in Medrash Rabbah and Rab Nachman in Gemara te'ena. How could the Gemara in Eruvin Daf Nun Dalet say that Torah Shabbal Peh is a fig when the fig was eitz hadas? It was the forbidden fruit. How could you do that? It's wondrous. It says in Zohar that Torah Shabbal Peh is the tree that has toiv and ra, the eitz hadas. But what does that mean? It doesn't mean in Rayim Hemnin Zohar that the Torah itself is a tree of good and evil. It's Torah. It's Torah Hashem. Ela mitzadai slap shus sheba b'dvarim gashmim hainu shei mislabeshes b'levushim de Torah mamash. Umitzad zeh hine b'limud ha'adam yuchal ishkoyach al Hashem noisen ha'Torah v'yishkach shehi chachmas yiritzoni yizbarach v'hainu shemitzad zeh she'Torah nislapshe b'inyanim gashmim u'b'shvil levarer u'lelabin fanande kleiben es ha'dvarim tzarich l'ishtamish b'seichel ha'gashmi b'ofen shel havana v'asaga gashmim yachaliyah shinyan ha'seichel shebazeh yizgabe v'yaylam v'yasin elel kus shebazeh at sheyishkach alel kus shebazeh v'az nasei tzil adam aloim with hepech ha'tov kedisa b'gemara loy zacha hainu shechaser etzla inyan hazakus v'habihirus nasa loy hepech the samchayim. You hear what he says, Azai? When you say Torah is compared to eitz hadas, a fig, It doesn't mean the Torah itself is a mixture of good and evil. Chas v'shalom, it's Torah. It means as follows. Because the Torah deals with all the aspects of the world, it deals with good things, it deals with bad things. Baba Kama, Baba Metzia, it deals with liars, with Ganovim, with Gazlonim, with Rotzchim. Halacha deals with everything. And it deals with business and civil disputes and civil matters, anything. And the Torah is mislabeshes, and that's the conversation of Torah. And when I want to understand Torah, I have to use my intellect. I have to use my mind in order to be able to dissect, to understand, to discern. So what happens is, he says, sometimes the intellectual experience can triumph and eclipse and prevail the spiritual experience. It starts off, it's Hashem's Torah, but I really have to use my mind, and that sometimes takes over because I'm not anchored in the relationship. And you see, sometimes people with Torah, they become so arrogant. You can't even talk to them. And it becomes about natschanis. I'm going to win. And it's ego. And who's smarter and who's better and who's getting more respect. And it affects even the way I think. It becomes very unclean, very, very impure. Why? It's not rooted in Ein Sof anymore. Ein Sof lamata adein tachlis, to the point of disconnect. It's still Torah. The Gemara says in Yuma Daf Ayin Beis that if you're Zoiche, the Torah is a medicine of life. And if not, it's a Sam HaMavis, it's poison. So the Rebbe teaches here, Zacha doesn't mean schus only. It comes from the word Zach. Shem and Zay is Zach. If you're Edel, Zacha, the Torah is Samcham Loi Zacha. If you felt the Edelkeit in Torah, you don't see the Ein Sof in Torah, Nasa Loi Sam HaMavis. For the other person, it's medicine that saves a life. Not that the Torah is poison. For me, it becomes poison. Sometimes a piece of Torah for a certain person is poison. You know, somebody OCD learns too much Mishnah Brura, right? You know what I mean? No, I'm serious. If a person takes things in the wrong way, a beautiful thing becomes poison. You know, I know a person with achilas pras, matzah, the shear of matzah, he was very OCD. He pushed it, he almost had a cardiac arrest at the Seder because they went a minute later. I told him, it's fine, the Chassam Sofer is 9 minutes, you're right. So was also a good Jew. My point is, Loi Zacha, somebody doesn't have the Edelkeit, Nasaloi, the Torah itself can become poisonous for the person because the way I'm accessing it and interpreting it and what I'm doing with it is anything but Chayim. That's the pshat, it's a fig. That's what Eitz Hadas is. Eitz Hadas means something that if you're not anchored in Ein Sof, it could become a source for dysfunctionality. Eitz Hadas toiv v'ra. Like intimacy. Das is intimacy. Hadam yada is chava. Intimacy can be either the greatest source of closeness or create the greatest heartache and challenges. Depends what it's rooted in. Zacha or loy zacha. If you're edel or you're not edel. So he says this is the danger of where in Torah, in a person's avodah, you have this concept. If you wouldn't have this gift, you wouldn't be able to abuse it. That's why when somebody uses Torah for hatred, for machlokes, for exploiting people, for protecting abusers, it's worse than somebody not using Torah. You know what I mean? The people that turn off innocent people most are people with spiritual authority and wisdom. Because you're supposed to be a representation of truth. Maybe if you were stama, poyer, a peasant, okay. But when you have somebody that they use the Torah, and they use the knowledge of Torah and the wisdom of Torah, and it becomes a source for negativity in any form or fashion, it becomes so disheartening for people. It turns more people off than anything else. Why? Because it's a divine gift that you're using to create a chilul Hashem. When you use religion to justify evil, it's the worst. Verstandig? Huh? You can see how people get so disgusted from it. Like, throw out your Torah. Was takst du China? They say in Pshischa, there was a Parush. He didn't talk to anybody. He would sit on an attic and learn. But once a week, Friday, after the mikveh, he would come out. He would sit near the mikveh on a box, and everybody would go by and give him shalom, and give him shalom, and it was like a whole scene. So that's what they say. It's a very sharp. Somebody just said, "Take away the box 1 week. Don't let him sit down." And the guy comes out from the mikveh and he's waiting, for the whole parade. And the kids took away the box, and he lost it, and he left everything. So Chabinim of Shizka said, "Sein ganze Torah was for this Friday afternoon parade. There was nothing there." Talk about narcissism. You understand? There was another story, they say, also by some Chabinim of Shizka. It was a big gun. He would learn and learn and learn. And then one day, it was after many years, he said Lashon Hara about some big tzaddik. He started to speak very negatively about him. So some Chabinim said that Gilad and Zibit Sikiyar Kademus al Gloibens and Lashon Hara. He learned 70 years they should believe his Lashon Hara. What he was trying to say is, not that he necessarily made a conscious cheshbon, he was trying to say there was something poisonous about his learning. There was something poisonous about it. That's it. You have to know that. And that's what the Gemara says in Yuma Dafayim Beis. Loi zoch, if you're not oizgeidelt, nasa loi sam hamavas. The Torah by me becomes poison. It's very sharp stuff because it's holy Torah. It's Hashem's Torah. Yet loi zocha, this fig could become an eitz hadas toivira. Why? Because the way you're processing it is God gets hidden and your seichel and ego takes over. You need seichel to learn. So you need an ego. I have to, right? Tosfos argued with Rashi, yeah? Tosfos argued with Rashi. The Ramban argued with the Rambam. That's ego? Yeah, Mefarshim argue. They're fighting with each other. I have to use my mind. I can't say, Rashi said it, I believe you. That's not how you learn. I believe you. I know, I believe Rashi. I know he knows what he's saying, but I want to understand. So you have to use your ego. That's where the danger. If you didn't have to use your ego, maybe. But you have to use your mind. Mind is, I'm using myself. But the foundation has to be that it's Eirin Saif. It's with a bittul. You want your mind to be a conduit for Torah. All you're looking for is truth. The moment I'm not looking for truth anymore, I'm looking to be right. Now you're a dangerous person. Das is Padai. That's what he says. The kolzo aderech hanal b'negei lepadai. Sho kafui toiva loima liyoyri v'ani asasine. You're given the gift of the nilas, in this case Torah, and the river suddenly becomes yours. Instead of it making you more humble, the river becomes yours. And he finishes the last chapter. We'll finish in a moment. U'mesayim basif. V'hu lefi sha'ar ba b'ribu yatzim halem es v'steina b'yoyse d'zeh winyan ha'teva loshen tubu v'yamsov sha'ar hu mutve b'heste v'halem b'yoyse sheba miribu yishtalshlus da'ar asher mishtalshu madrega l'madrega d'madrega sa'yoyse acherenis. This is all because the Ur comes through many tzimtzumim and helemus and estadim, which is what teva means. The word teva comes from the word tubu v'yamsov. Today's parsha. Tubu v'yamsov means something is drowned in the yamsov. It says, Amayda de kavod. What's pshat teva? Nature. Why is it called nature? Because the Eirin Saif is drowned. When someone drowns, chas v'shalom, they're submerged in the water. You don't see them. Tubu v'yamsov. Teva means that the Eirin Saif is tubu. It's all there, but it's embedded. It's submerged inside the water. So you don't see what's inside. You just see water. That's pshat teva. You understand? So teva is really a lakus. So why is it called teva? Because it's tubu v'yamsov. And this is what he continues in the next sif in Basi Legani Yudalit. Shegam b'madreges hayoser acheronis lamata adein tachlis nimshach v'nimtzayin de'erin saif. So this is the summation that even in the lowest levels, the Eirin Saif is fully present. Umitzad zeh nasa inyan de bal yiduch memenu nidach. This is the most important line of the Maamar. And because of this, we have the reality, lo yidach v'nidach. Nothing and nobody will get lost. Why will nothing and nobody get lost? Because it's Eir Ein Sof. Because even now it's not lost. You just have to reveal that it's connected. So nobody and nothing will forever be lost. Because even now it's not lost. Ubesifim shalachir is, that's the pshat lo yidach v'eno nidach. Lo yidach v'eno nidach means nothing will be an outcast forever. Everything has a tikkun. Everything can be repaired. Ubesifim shalachir is hamamshich l'vayda yinda in sof l'may ladin ketz. So after explaining Lamata Netachlis, he'll continue to speak about the opposite, Lamai Ladin Ketz. Hashem Abchina Zunim Shachim Oich Dushim Evazbaz and Venois Demaisim L'Tzivus Hashem. Shem Loirak P'kidei HaChayil L'Chalan Shechayil. And these are the treasures that Hashem, the King, gives to fight the war, to all the Tzivus Hashem. The Oitzrus, which are Lamata Adin Tachlis and Lamai Ladin Ketz. Father Rabbi and Nitzachim Poyel L'Man Shechayil. The main treasures are not given to the generals, they're given to the foot soldiers. The generals may give it, but they're not the ones who fight. It's the boots on the ground. To take the lie of the world and the shtus, the insanity of the world, and turn it into sheker, into keresh, and shtus into atzei shittim. You just have to reconfigure it. Now think what reconfiguration is. When you take sheker, you're not eliminating the letters. You're just changing the order. Sheker into keresh. That's the whole nekuda. If Eir Ein Sof would not be lamata adin tachlis, you got to get rid of the lie. But because the lie itself is Eir Ein Sof, so what do you have to do? You have to reconfigure it. You have to turn keresh, sheker into keresh, shtus into atzei shittim. You're not eliminating it. You're aligning it, you're harnessing it, you're redirecting it. You're just changing the letters. In today's technology, it's called cut and paste. Sheker, right? So take the shin, put it at the end. Take the kuf, put it in the beginning. Take the resh, put it in the middle. In other words, the job of the Jew, you don't have to recreate the document. You just need a good editor. Spell check. You need a good editor. That's what we need. We need editors. Take the text, take the letters, rearrange the tziruf. That's the whole nekuda. Yeah. You don't have to reinvent the wheel. You have to. All the world needs is a good copy editor. Because the whole world is Hashem's tzirufim. It's all God's letters.
So because the Jews weren't Rishanas, their shame, they
Yeah.
stayed the same.
Yeah.
No change.
Yeah.
The opposite.
Yeah.
In a good way.
Yeah. If it's a good tziruf, you want to leave it. If it's a beautiful word, leave it. But that's a very deep idea. Because if it's all made up of letters, so you need to change the sequence. That's what it is. And then the whole letter, the word becomes a different word. Instead of being a lie, it becomes a beam. Instead of being a shtus, it becomes atzei shittim. And that builds the Beis HaMikdash. By using the treasures that were squandered in order to fulfill the mission of being victorious in the war, as a mismal is tachlis avodah. The tachlis of the avodah, the purpose is fulfilled. Building within each person a Beis HaMikdash. Through the avodah of everybody, you create that there should be the ikr shchin in tachtoinim. Just like when Basi Legani Hashem says, I came back to my garden. The Shechina came back down, as he said in the beginning of the Maamar. So this becomes the beginning of the avodah throughout the generations. This shall be the same when Mashiach comes Bekar of Maamar speedily. Maamar nowadays, that what? That the Iker Shechina, the divine full light, is completely manifested in our world, B'tachtoinim, with full alignment and unity.
This class is brought to you by theyeshiva.net. Please help us continue the classes. Make even a small contribution at www.theyeshiva.net/donate.